Hello everyone and welcome to Everyday Eternal number 83. Tonight I'm joined by our regular host, Julian Nubb. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. And we have a very special guest all the way from Belgium. We have Sam Dams. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Caleb. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. We've had the people asking for you like everywhere in our Discord, on Twitter, saying we want to hear about Infect. We want to hear from Sam. So yeah, it's really good to have you on.
Okay, great. It's an honor to be here, really, because I've been listening to you guys for so long, and now to actually make it to this show is, kind of like a dream come true, I guess. I never imagined I would ever make it this far, so it's pretty amazing, really. Pretty exciting.
And then you find out our pre-show chat was just talking about drinks and beer and stuff, so
that's
we're just idiots as well.
Did you guys actually threaten to cancel the entire show tonight and just like have a big talk about whiskey and everything?
It's still an option. I'm just saying it's still an option.
If maybe we can get some really quick questions on Twitter about which whiskies we like and what everything going on. But yeah. Anyway, back onto actual talk about things important. Julian, have you been up to anything interesting recently? This past week or two?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Elves Against. I finally got my hands on some Arosaurus Shepherds, and I knew the card was going to be good, but the card is actually even better. When I said I was going to play 3 in the main deck, just to find out how good they're going to be, and then I expected to go back to 2, but now I'm actually looking at the 4th copy, just because the card it's absolutely insane, so...
Wow. Because I've seen some Elves lists at the beginning started with 2 or 3, and then they went to like 1 as a good like Greenstone's Zenith target, but you think it's just like a straight up 4 of it?
In the standard version, definitely. In the Reclaimer version, Newton makes a good point that it's more focused on grinding and like doing random hits here and there, so it's like less dependent on glimpse and natural orders. But in this one, there are many scenarios where you drop the Shepherd on turn 3, they're tapped out for, I don't know, a Ponder into a Dreadhorde Arcanist or something, and then you literally just win, unless they have Submerge, which I guess we can talk about this in either a later part of the episode, but probably more like a future episode. But yeah, this is one of the things I've been doing. The other one, I finally played Doomsday. I played a league with with Martin Nielsen, Never Shoot, and that's on my Patreon right now. But it's actually gonna be released to YouTube, I think, in the next coming days. So as soon as this podcast is out, it should already be on my YouTube. And wow, Doomsday, great deck, amazing deck. I think I learned a lot also about the weaknesses of Doomsday. For example, Martin taught me how like Back to Basics is one of the most feared cards for them, because they sometimes don't actually get to double blue post Doomsday if they get to Back to Basics. And that was something that I didn't really have on my radar, and like, wow. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
The ways to interact with it are very weird. Yeah, like when I very first like tried it after Thassa's Oracle came out and stuff, I tried out a few times and I did some silly things like played out a Lotus Petal and then they abrupt decayed it, and like that's the kind of little weaknesses that, or they like force a will a Lotus Petal or something, so you can't cavern it. Like it has really weird play patterns, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm excited to watch the VOD of that because I wasn't able to tune in. Sounds good.
Oh, yeah, you should. I think we actually tried to find the solution to one particular pile for 10 minutes, to the point where Magic Online was actually threatening to like kick us off and stuff. And then we discussed that afterwards in the Doomsday Discord, and that was actually a really long discussion. And then finally somebody found an entirely different line than from what we proposed. So we proposed like different combo lines that played around different stuff. And then somebody else came along and they were like, you know what, we are actually going to build a pile with like Force of Wills and stuff, and we're actually going to Force of Will whatever you're going to try to play around, and then just win like 2 turns later. And that was like mind-blowing, and I guess that's Doomsday for you. It's still like quite complicated.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Kenan, what have you been up to? What have you been doing?
I've been wondering what to play, kind of. Like, I don't know, I still feel slightly lost in Legacy. I had a lot of fun with Sharksteel decks, and I think if I was like, if GPs were still going on and like there was one soon, I'd probably be trying stuff like that. But I don't know, I'm at that point again where nothing is really clicking with me. So there is a blue-black like Storm deck, which Jax, who everyone will know, he likes to kill people on turn 1 on Magic Online, terrorizing the leagues. He came up with a Peer into the Abyss deck, which is like, it's a 7-mana sorcery with triple black in the cost, and target player loses half their life and they draw half their deck. So this card is insanely powerful. So he's been playing it in like a kind of typical blue-black list with Tendrils of Agony and stuff. So I wanted to try and work out a way to make it even more Like you just cast this and win. And Bolus the Citadel is kind of a similar card. So I was trying this in a deck with like Soul Lands and Grim Monolith and of course both Dark and Cabal Ritual and stuff. So I streamed that this past week, I think it was. Or maybe it was the week before. So that's pretty cool. I saw Andrea Mangucci picked it up and he's doing a legacy video with it. So check that out. The deck is completely ridiculous. Like you can win on turn 1 or it can look like such a terrible pile. You just don't know what the fuck you're doing. So yeah, that's what I've been doing and thinking about Peer into the Abyss. So maybe we can make the deck work eventually and yeah, but it's not there yet, I think. What about you, Sam? Anything interesting in the last couple of weeks?
Well, actually, yeah, I've been having a lot of fun coming up with some weird builds that will never work, but I enjoy trying stuff out that usually never works, but sometimes, from time to time, something actually sticks. And I've been trying a combination of Miracles and Infect, which made no sense at all, but I was happy to try it. It was pretty funny. I played, I still played, I think, 4 or 5 Infect creatures, and I had Flux Channeler in there, and then just a bunch of Planeswalkers. Do you guys know Flux Channeler?
Flux Channeler? Is that the 3-mana 2/2 when you cast a non-creature spell you proliferate?
Exactly. So the idea was to just smash in for like 1 Infect, that's it, and then control the game with basically just a control shell.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It didn't work at all. I mean, it was fun.
If you don't try these like ridiculous ideas, you don't find the golden nuggets hiding in the crap.
Exactly. I had a lot of fun. I actually played at a certain point. I didn't even play Miracles. I was playing 4-color control.
That's cool.
A shell where I played. What was the name of the creature again? It's like a commander creature that says proliferate at the end of the turn. Atraxa.
Atraxa.
That's the one.
Like Praetor or something. Yeah.
Which was hilarious.
And I guess that's just like beats up on Delver as well because it's like a 4-mana flying vigilance lifelink, lots of keywords.
Exactly. Thing is, I didn't win ever using the proliferate, so I figured I was basically just playing a bad control deck, but it was fun. Which that's what I've been up to lately. And of course, just grinding the Infect as usual. Yeah, but nice. I always like to have fun, so I do stupid things from time to time. So that's.
I'm so on board with that. Love it.
Was there a Revenge of the Hunted in the deck? When you mentioned Miracles, I thought that might be there. That's the green Miracle spell.
No, actually no, because I literally have 0 pump spells in the deck. So
I think the better Miracle spell with Julian is Blessing of Nature, right?
Blessing of Nature. Yeah. It's all possibilities, but I wanted to try. Can I actually make Infect work without a single pump spell? And the answer is no. So
maybe this is something we get into later in the podcast, but like that is kind of how Infect versus Control did play out, at least. I'm not sure about now. Like against old Miracles, you would just hit for one, and your Vines of Vastwoods are never pump spells, right?
No, and Vines is actually, I think it's one of the cards I most love about Infect because it's the way it's worded is so good because it's not actually hexproof. It's even better where you can even stop your opponents from equipping like a GT.
Yeah.
Which is so silly. They never intended that card to work that way. But Vines is like it's perfect because it's actually just a protection spell, but sometimes you just win the game with it.
Yeah, it is a cool one. Like the Jitty interaction actually comes up a lot, right? It used to when Jitty was played more, I guess. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Julian, have you ever had an elf untap Vines before? Does that work?
Elf untap Vines?
Has anyone Vines as like a why would Symbiote untap a creature?
To stop it. No, I think that has never happened. I might have lost creatures in combat to Berserk, though. To like Berserk on my creature and then it dies at the end of combat or something. I think something like that has happened. But I think nobody ever stopped my Vines. Maybe can you stop like Mother of Runes activation with Vines? I think you...
Yeah, you can. I've done that quite a lot of times, but I've never actually stopped an elf from untapping.
I think the Mother of Runes things has happened to me when I played Maverick, but with elves, not so much.
Yeah, one of the coolest interactions I've ever done with Vines is when the companions were still legal, and you had what's the name of the companion which wins the game immediately?
The untapping one?
No, not the Zerda. That's like the fox, right? The one that goes all in.
Oh, Garuda.
Garuda.
Yeah.
If you Vines Garuda, it fizzles.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was hilarious. So that was one of the most funny things I ever did. He just plays Garuda and I Vines it, and yeah, okay.
I would never have thought that.
Awesome. That's kind of crazy. I'm really looking forward to more of those stories for the rest of the cast.
Yeah. you can do some silly things with Vines of Vastwood. It's hilarious. Maybe I had considered once making a list of stupid things I've done with Vines of Vastwood, but I haven't gotten that far. But
Awesome. Before we get into the meat of the episode, let me introduce you by saying, Caleb already mentioned that you are one of the most requested guests in our Patreon ever.
Really?
And yeah, that being said, how do you get access to our Patreon? To our Discord? You can support us on patreon.com/everydayeternal. Just for example, like Eugene Freeman, who just joined on our top Grizzlebrand tier. Thank you so much for that. And that way you can have an actual say, like, in which kind of guests we might approach, whom we might invite. And tonight, it's really gonna be you, because, like I said, I had no idea how famous and popular you were, probably not only in Belgium, but especially there. Like, I think we've got a couple of Belgians in our chat, or at least a lot of people who know you. And I gotta admit, I knew you like as the Infect streamer, but I didn't really know too much else about you. But people kept bringing you up so many times, and we wanted to have you on the cast early in the year, and then like COVID happened, and like I think we didn't produce a podcast for a month, and then so here back we are. Sam, tell us something about you. Who are you? What do you do for a living? What's your background as a Magic player? Tell us.
Well, first of all, that's quite amazing. I actually didn't know that myself, that I was that popular, apparently. The thing is, maybe what I think is that there aren't all that many people that play Infect anymore. And I think it's one of those decks that it has a legacy, but it seems to be fading. And I think maybe that's why people would like to hear from the deck. That's what I think. It's just, I don't know if that's true, but that's maybe what I'm considering. Could be the reason why it was requested. And about me, well, I've been playing Legacy for quite a lot of years now. I started, I think, in 2015. Really, in a very, very stupid way. I was playing Commander at the time with a bunch of friends. And I had no interest at all in ever competing in tournaments. Literally no interest. It was just a fun game for me. It still is. That's not what I'm saying, but it was just purely based on having fun with my friends. And then it was at a party, and I had a friend of me who said, "Oh, you play Magic?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, for fun." And he says, "Maybe you should go and compete with us." And I literally said, "No, that's not for me. I don't think I would enjoy this." But he kept pushing me, and I said, "You know what? Okay, sure. I'll join you for one tournament." And it was just a Friday Night Magic, and I borrowed the Goblins deck from him. And I actually ended up winning that Friday Night Magic, and from then on I haven't stopped playing anymore, because if you play a tournament and you win immediately, then you kind of get the hang of it. I didn't win like for 1 or 2 years after that one, so it was pretty much a good luck from the start. But still, it's funny to start that way. What else do I do? Is I'm a teacher, actually. I am a teacher of biology. I don't know what it's called in English, but I teach from, I think, 14 to 18. So how do we say this in English? I don't know, but that's.
Is it like high school?
Group. I think so. It's high school, probably. Yeah.
So you're just studying the ways of infecting people in real life.
Exactly.
As well. I see.
Exactly.
I see.
My entire life is in the same direction, so keep it in biology related.
They call him the super spreader.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually funny. The first deck I actually got together by myself is Elves. That's what I started out with.
That's a very peculiar deck to play in Legacy. Tell me more about it.
Exactly, because when I started playing, I hated blue. This is so weird. I hated blue cards, and I was like, countering stuff is so lame, I came from Commander, so that doesn't happen over there. So I was like, why do you counter stuff? It's so boring. I hate it. So I decided, let's just play Elves. But then it was like, when I started, it was in 2015. I think it was around the time when... Dig Through Time, exactly. Yeah, you remember. Yes. And it was so horrible. It was a horrible time to play Elves, at least in my experience. Maybe that's wrong, but... I was like, no, I'm not going to play this deck anymore. And then I started looking for other decks. But I guess If I talk more, we're going to the history of the deck, and that's for later, I guess. So about me, I'm a teacher. I give biology, and I also studied biology in university. So that's a bit about me. And I have two main hobbies.
You're basically saying you're not a fraud. You actually know something about biology. Not only a teacher, but you actually went to university.
Yeah, I actually am a biologist, so I actually know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to say. My main hobby is magic and music. I'm a big musician myself. I'm a huge music fan. I play a bunch of instruments too. But now that Corona hit, you can't play music anymore.
It stops it completely.
It was, and I'm so lucky to be able to play my other hobby online and still do that hobby, because I think if you're a musician right now. Yeah, I know a lot of my friends actually, they make their money off of this, and I can tell you one thing, they are not in a good position. So
no, I'm in a similar boat. I play in a band, and we've got like an album written since a year ago this week, and our label is American, so they're like, all the pressing plants are shut down. We would be touring now.
It feels bad, right?
I work for like a music company as well, and it's tougher, but
yeah, it really is.
But as you say, we're very lucky to have magic to like just chat about nonsense all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe to cheer you up, Sam, our Discord was also talking about your music and that you do that. So I have no idea how popular you are. It was actually quite fascinating.
This is funny because I didn't realize this either. I'm just a guy playing a legacy deck, you know that. So I never figured that you could be popular because of this. Maybe it's because I started streaming recently, but I have only been streaming now for I think 3 or 4 months.
That's a solid amount, and I think I've watched your stream a few times, and you're very like interactive with people. You're always in a good mood. You play the deck well as well. This is what people look for in a streamer. So yes, I recommend your stream.
I do make stupid mistakes on stream because I talk with my audience all the time, and it's actually quite funny because.
I love watching streamers when they make mistakes though, like because when they make a mistake and notice it and point it out, you learn so much more. Like you see, okay, this is something I shouldn't be doing. Like it's great if someone plays perfectly as well. But if someone makes a mistake and then doesn't realize it or like complains about getting unlucky, that kind of puts you off. But I think noticing mistakes is a very good way to stream as well. So
what I love about streaming is when I stream, I just have fun. I really don't care if I win or lose. I just want people to come to my stream and then chat with me. That's why I stream. And what I try to do is tell my audience why I'm making decisions, because I think this is one of the things that if you're watching a legacy streamer, because we are so into the game, for us it's natural. We brainstorm and put cards back, we shuffle, we do this. But if you have newer players, they have no idea why you are doing certain things. So I try to explain everything I do, and I think that's why the stream is running well. Is going pretty well, because I found that a lot of newer players find their way to my stream because I think that's something that they enjoy. But it's all I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I still don't know why the popularity.
I think I have a theory that exactly what you're explaining is why people like you. I think that's my deep analysis theory. That's what people want when they go to a stream. They want someone concisely explaining what you do and why you're doing it, not just like autopiloting and as you say, doing it for fun. So
yeah, exactly. Great. I guess it's the teacher in me, just explaining it as I'm going along.
Yeah, but you're also making it entertaining. Like I was watching a little bit of your stream, and not only is like your production quality really good, you get a good flow going. It's not like there's a minute of silence and then you're just like making grunting noises and then once again you're explaining something. It's like there's a real flow and it's continuous, and that's catchy, that's addicting. That's also what you put on when you just have a streamer running a little bit in the background on your second monitor or something, and you still enjoy it. And that's something I think that people really appreciate in streamers.
Wait, grunting noises doesn't work. I gotta change my rep.
But you know that these like I have my theory about like streamer types, and one of those streamer types is like the person who's always angry, loud, annoying, and that's just like their brand, Hookland, and that's just like not for me. But I do have to maybe not appreciate, but definitely concede that works, and that can also make you like really successful as a streamer. It's just that's not what I'm looking for, but I'm not saying that that's bad. It's just like something else.
No, I think the most important thing is just be you. If you're faking it, then people will notice, and you won't be able to maintain this. Just be yourself, and don't try to be someone else that you're not. I think that's the most important thing when you're streaming.
Authenticity, I guess, would be the keyword.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But thanks for the compliments. It's. I guess I'll continue streaming.
We're actually going to put the link to your stream in the show notes, but we're also going to mention it by the end of the podcast. So if you want to see the show notes, it's julian.com. And like I said, people wanted you on for your biology and Infect knowledge. But before we get into Infect, because the deck, I want to say it hasn't been around since the very beginning of the format. I guess we didn't have Infect creatures back then, or at least playable ones. So you mentioned you only got into the format in 2015. Can you tell us something about the history of the deck before that? Because I feel like the heyday of Infect was around 2014, right? When Tom Ross in his leather jacket was bossing around people with Infect.
The boss, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. The first appearance I ever found about the Infect deck was, I think, in 2011. That's the first instance I found where I had a combination of Invigorate and Berserk in there, but it was like maybe one deck and that's it. I think, exactly as you said, Tom Ross is the person, when you think of Infect, he's the one that you think about. And from 2014 to 16, he has made so much progress with the deck. He made so many good results. And he was also the person that I watched when I started playing the deck. As I said, I started in 2015, kind of like in the peak moment of the deck. And when Elves was just no longer my thing, I started thinking about, okay, I'm going to look for a different deck. What do I want to play? And I started looking online for videos, and then I saw Tom Ross play the deck, and I was like, man, that looks sweet. It's so amazing. Yeah, sure, it plays blue, but I'll give it a chance anyway, because it's still. I wanted a deck that had green in it, and back in that day, green was not a good color, so you didn't have that many decks that played green. So yeah, and I ended up with Infect. And the funny thing is, Tom Ross, his last very good result was in February 2016, and my first top 8 with Infect was in, I think, in March or May the same year, so 2016. So I started playing in 2015, and my first top 8 was, I think, a year later. So just to show you how long it took me to actually get a small comprehension of the deck. And it wasn't a big tournament or anything. But after Tom Ross left, I think he started working for Wizards in 2017. And he had been off. Yeah, he didn't play any tournaments then anymore, because I think if you work for Wizards, you can't actually play tournaments. Not sure about that.
Can do now. They eased that a little bit, but you can't play like. I think you can't play cheapies, but you can play like at FNMs and stuff. But it used to be that you couldn't play at all.
Maybe it was just a personal decision. I'm not sure. Anyway, I know that at 2017 he stopped playing. But there were a lot of other players back in that period that did well with the deck. So like we have Zachary Koch, who had multiple good finishes on the SCG tour. Sorry?
From Alabama, yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly. And even in probably one of the biggest moments is Clay Spickelmeyer. He actually won the GP in 2016 with Infect. I remember seeing it. It was the finals against Miracles.
Against Joe Lussett.
Yeah, exactly. And that was so awesome. So it was really the height of the deck. And then Tom Ross left, and there was one card that was printed called Fatal Push. And that that was where the decline started.
Heard of that one?
Because, yeah, you've heard of that one probably. Because the thing is, in fact, usually the best removal in the past was Lightning Bolt and red removal. And, well, pump spells, they line up very well against red removal, right? If you bolt and I invigorate, okay, win for me. But Fatal Push is much more difficult for us to deal with. We have Vines, that's pretty much it. So it became much more dangerous to go all in, because if they have a Fatal Push and you invigorate Berserk, yeah, Fatal Push and you just lost 3 cards and your game is over. In the past, if you go for it and they bolt, you just invigorate again and you win the game. So I've seen a decline in the Infect deck starting 2017, and ever since, well, I think from 2017 to 19, the deck was less popular, and because the printing of so many cards made it so difficult. For example, remember Renan 6? That was a horrible period to play. In fact, it was so disgusting, really. It was no longer playable. And then we had Grixis Control at a certain point, which was the best deck in the format, which had like Deathrite Shaman, and it was just filled with black removal. And there was one or 2 months in my entire career, Magic career, that even I stopped playing Infect for 2 months. Which was when Grixis Control was everywhere. Because if they just go turn 1, Deathrite Shaman, yeah, what am I going to do with my 1/1, my 1/1 elf? Even if I just attack, it's no longer good enough, right? It was so insane. And then after it got banned, I think then the deck became a bit better, but so many people left chip that I think that maybe it's just no longer on the radar. And especially in recent times with the power creep, I think so many creatures have been printed that are just so horrible for Infect. I mean, like, Plague Engineer is horrible for us. Icefang Coatl 2, you have Dreadhorde Arcanist, which is so difficult for Infect to deal with. And you now see that the power creep is located on creatures. And Infect does not have a very good way of dealing with creatures. In the past, it was all about the instant and sorceries. And that was something that Infect has a good... Yeah, we have a good winning chance of this. But creatures is much more difficult. And now we have Oko, Teferi 2, and... yeah, if the power creep is located on creatures and planeswalkers, then Infect will struggle. And I found that in the beginning my win rate has declined quite a lot as well with the change in the power creep. And that's when I start thinking, okay, I'm going to have to change around a bit, where I have now swapped to playing Bant, where in the future I always played Simic. But I think we'll discuss that later. But I think that's, if we briefly try to summarize the path Infect has seen over the last years, I think that's where we are right now, where Infect it has issues with the recent changes, I'd say, where we now have that the best cards are usually creatures or planeswalkers. It's much more difficult for Infect to deal with than just instants and sorceries, if you ask me. That's what I think, at least.
That's a good way to sum it up. I actually never thought about that, how the power creep on the creatures especially is an issue for you, because you mentioned, the deck, your only really removal spell, quote unquote, in the main deck is technically Berserk, and that's not always the best thing to do.
Exactly.
One of my best friends in London, we've been testing Legacy since 2014, 15 together or so, and his favorite deck was always Infect, and he played it every GP, and he was really a master of it until he's stepped away from Magic recently, and he always played Pongify as removal.
Pongify. That is sweet.
This is even when, so back to the Deathrite Shaman thing, he correctly identified that the scariest cards from Ricker's Delver isn't the Lightning Bolt, it isn't the Force of Will, it's the Deathrite Shaman, because Infect...
Yeah, exactly.
The extra mana is exactly what beats Infect. It's the playing around days, it's the 2 removal spells, it's the discard spell plus removal spell thing.
Yeah.
So he was playing Pongifies to deal with either Deathrite, because it trades at even mana, or then Grim Lavemancers or whatever you there. He was 3/3 doesn't matter. But Pongify can look really embarrassing as well, so that tells you what you have to dig to in blue-green, I guess. Yeah,
that's definitely true, and that's why I started playing the White Splash I think for 6 months now, and if this is the way that Wizards is going with Magic, then I don't think I'm going to cut White again anytime soon. But I think in regards to this year, well, with COVID, I'm not sure if I can say all too much about the meta, because we now are looking at an online meta, and I think that Infect has never been that popular online, if you ask me. I think it's maybe a deck that people enjoy playing on paper. It's just a theory. I'm not sure about this.
I think that's very true as well. I've noticed the same. Yeah. It's a really a fan favorite deck.
It really is.
I think it is very strong. It is strong enough to be a major player online as well. But I don't know. People just see it as too weak to removal, I guess. But yeah, it is.
Which is true. It is
played
weak
a lot
to
more
removal.
on paper. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on. What you were saying?
No, I was just about to say that the online meta is different. So I don't know about this year. I think the deck is better than than we see right now. With I think it's 1% on MTG Top 8 or something like this. I think it should be higher than that for sure. But I think the deck is so unforgiving that I think a lot of players just it's a deck where if you make one mistake, you're just gonna lose. It really is that easy. Where if you play Delver, if you shoot a lightning bolt the wrong direction, the deck is so strong it will survive. You can still win the game. But if in fact, I think if you shoot a spell at the wrong target or something, you will lose, because you really need all of your resources, and maybe that's another reason why people play it or don't play it anymore or less, because they would just want to have, especially in the online meta, the best deck. This is all theory. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, explanations I can think of.
It makes sense to me. Yeah.
With regards to how you play the deck and everything, I think one mistake or easy easy thing to avoid rather is to not play the deck as a purely all-in combo deck. Because that's what you, I think, often see if people pick up the deck for the first time. They will throw everything they have on their turn 1 Glistener Elf and then be blown out by a removal spell, even though they, like, if they knew more about the matchup, and that's me speculating because I've never been, like, super good with Infect. I played it a couple of times and I think I understand somewhat about, like, how it combines both, like, an aggressive combo as well as a grindy approach, because that always reminded me of Elves, right? I always felt like Infect in a way was, like, related to Elves, like it's our sister deck or something, because it also plays that thing of, hey, I can kill you on turn 2, but I can also like slowly outgrind you and never actually commit to my crazy combo and just take 2 here, take 2 there, and then eventually you just get them because eventually they'll have to pull the trigger first. And that's something I appreciate about Infect. And if you are confident in how the matchup plays and that the deck has this potential by just like using Noble Hierarch and Pendelhaven to basically attack you for 3 every turn, if you're confident in that, then you can like actually allow yourself to play the long game and not feel like pushed into having to commit on turn 2 or turn 3. And I think that's what's a big part of playing the deck. Is that something that sounds remotely true, or did I just like make this up?
For sure, 100%. And as I said, when I started playing the deck in 2015, it took me for a year and a couple of months before I ever had a good result with it, because it is such a weird deck to play. It really is. It's so different from everything that you know. Most decks, they have a straightforward game plan, but Infect you don't have one win condition. I mean, yeah, sure, Infect is your number one way to win. But I can tell you how many times I've won with just regular damage because of a Noble Hierarch. It happens. You have to think out of the box, and you can only do this once you know your deck very well. And if I can start with an Elf and I can just slam in every single turn, that's fine. If I can get the Infect damage through, I don't care if I win in 5 turns or if I win in 1 turn. And I think, as you said before, that's exactly what, when you start playing the deck, you have to learn. Infect is not a combo deck. I can't stress this enough. I wish I could, maybe I should tattoo this on my forehead or something like this, but Infect is not a combo deck.
Caleb, you notice how I always say that about Elves as well, that Elves is not a combo deck?
And people disagree, right? I guess you know this. People say, no, Elves is just a combo deck, and Infect is a combo deck. And I can guarantee you this, if you play Infect as a combo deck, you will lose. Don't get me wrong, it has a combo shell in there, sure, and you can abuse it, but it is not a combo deck. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that's what people have to learn once they start playing the deck.
That's the beauty of it.
It's one of the real strengths of the deck, right? You have this turn 2 potential, and in the matchups that you need to do that, like in other I'm about to say other combo matchups, but it's not a combo deck, sorry. In your combo matchups, you have to like kill them pretty fast. You're going to be going more all in. But it's one of these like real holdover decks of Legacy pre-War of the Spark, I guess, because it's almost like a chess game against fair decks with removal, because you play this sub-game of hidden information where you're like, okay, so I have a Vines of Vastwood in my hand and a Invigorate. Those are lining up with their Fatal Push and their Lightning Bolt. So the first person to blink loses in that situation. So then you're like working around, then some Flusterstorms in there as well, and you are then playing this like 5D chess game against this opponent with 2 or 3 removal spells, and you've got your 2 or 3 answers to them. And it's the first one that usually blinks or gets choked on mana or something, or they have to push. And that's why you want to be doing this game plan of attack you for 1, attack you for 1, attack you for 1, because you usually don't need to push until they fight back. So that was what I played so much Miracles with Sensitive Divine top against my friend who I mentioned before. We spent hours and hours and hours playing this matchup, and it was just insane. It was like the most beautiful magic, and he would crush me with a Flusterstorm every single time, but it was this hidden information game that was so brilliant. So that is the non-combo side of the deck, I guess, and it happens a lot because you play against fair a lot, I assume.
Yeah, okay. This is where we have Caleb back. He just was dropped from the internet. Like, I think we've had a recurring meme of Brexit, of your internet doing the Brexit. So
no, I'm not for Brexit. I want to stay.
Yeah, but your internet apparently is a part of the living.
I have misbehaving internet.
You've got Tory internet apparently.
Oh God.
So yeah, we were just talking about the hidden information game and how that's also important to Infect, right? Because you're basically making them shoot first if you can, and then you're maybe gonna come out ahead. Because maybe at this point we can talk a little bit more about the inner workings of the deck. Like, people usually know there's Glistener Elf, there's Blighted Agent, and there's Inkmoth Nexus as the Infect creatures. And then there's a wide array of pump spells. The most common one is Invigorate, which is the one that gives, is it like +4/+4 for 3 life, right? So your opponent gains 3 life, and you get to put make some creature go +4/+4.
Yeah.
The other most common ones are Berserk, which basically doubles a creature's power, and it gets Trample, which is important, and it dies at the end of combat. And then there's also Winds of Vastwood, which for a single green just gives the creature, no, it's not hexproof, what's the other one, Shroud?
No, not even. No, it's
not
it's
either.
neither of those. It's so weird because I think maybe I should check the exact wording of it because
I think it's like target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponent controls.
yeah, something like this.
That's actually the best version.
Yeah, it really, because it's actually a slightly better than hexproof.
Yeah.
But that slightly is quite important in Legacy. So yeah, did you have a question about the?
No, I was just like gonna mention them because not everybody might be fully familiar with how the deck works. So
okay, sure.
Winds of Vastwood is for a single green is gonna do this basically improved version of hexproof, and if you kick it, it's also gonna give the creature +4/+4. And then there's more recent additions, like for example Becoming Men's, which is the +6/+6 spell for I think 5 delve and a green.
Yeah.
Did I get that right? Oh, awesome. And then there's Scale Up that turns the creature into... Now I actually have to totally make this up. How big does Scale Up make the creature?
Scale Up, it's a sorcery, which is very important. And it says the base power of the creature becomes a 6/4, and it becomes green. Not that that's relevant.
Oh, okay. So you can basically use this as a +5 plus something spell, and then on top of that...
Not exactly, because it doesn't technically gives +5. It says the base power becomes 6/4. So if I were to use Pendelhaven, for example, on my 1/1, Pendelhaven says it becomes a 2/3, and then I use Scale Up, it will actually become a 6/4, but Pendelhaven will give it +1/+2.
Yeah, so Pendelhaven would still apply, so it would actually go to 7, right?
Exactly, yeah. But it doesn't actually give plus to it, if that makes sense. The base power changes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that actually relevant?
Not all that much, but no, I don't think so. It's I would never say never, because in Legacy you always find some way how it will be relevant, but can't immediately think of one.
Yeah, I guess that there's going to be some very curious applications for how you can use all those spells. So maybe at this point, can you walk us through, like, what's your preferred way for this to go? Do you usually start out on invigorating the creature, so you hold back the Winds of Vastwood for protection? What are your basic routines with the deck if you actually go for it?
Mm-hmm. I think I could write a book about this. This is the most important thing in Infect. You have so many angles that you can do, and I think Calum said it correctly. Playing Infect is like playing a chess game. And this is why I've never gotten bored with the deck, because every game I play is different, and it's a puzzle inside your head. There is no one linear game plan, and you can use all of these things at so many different ways, because... Like, I can just have an Invigorate and a Winds of Vastwood in my hand, and I can decide to go for it, but I can also just decide to keep them as protection spells. Like, if I'm playing against Delver, for instance, if I'm playing against Delver, I usually keep my pump spells in my hand, and I try to use them in combination. So first he Invigorate, he bolts, I Vines, I try to win. But if I'm playing against a Control Shell, for instance, I try to use my pump spells whenever I can. So if I have a turn 1 Elf, he Ponders, and I only have this Invigorate in hand, I will just use it immediately, and I will be stuck with the Vines, because then I prefer the pump spell. I don't want the pump spell, I want to have the protection. So I can't give you one straight answer. It literally depends on the deck I'm playing against. It's different for every single matchup. In general, if I have to make some assumptions, I'd say in games where speed is of essence, for example against combo, just fire off your pump spells immediately, or as quickly as possible. If you're playing against decks that have discard, you usually want to use your pump spells as quickly as possible as well. But that's not true if you're playing against control, because you have control decks that have discard too, and there you want to keep them. So you see what I'm getting at, right? With Infect, there is no one size fits all approach. There just isn't. Every single matchup is different. So in general, I would just say play it safe. That's what I always do.
Mhm.
Infect's not a combo deck. Play it safe. And what you always have to do is you have to find the best spot to go for it, which is the hardest part of Infect. Finding when to go for it is key in every single game. That is always true. It really is. So if you wait too long, your opponent will find a removal spell and you lose the game. If you go too quickly, they just, you might 3-for-1 yourself. You go for it, Invigorate Berserk, they Fatal Push, game over. And unfortunately, as frustrating as this is, I can't explain you this. I can explain to you if I have a situation what you should do, but as I said, there is no one size fits all, and even against the same deck, this depends on my opening hand and what my opponent is doing. The only way you can learn this is through practice and knowledge. For example, if
I'm watching your stream.
Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly. This is where you can find knowledge. For example, imagine I was playing against the recent situation or the recent decks of 4-color control. What they usually have if removal is like Abrupt Decays and Fatal Pushes. You need to know this. And then imagine I have Blighted Agent and Inkmoth Nexus, 2 threats. What you usually do is attack with Blighted Agent, right? Because that's for free. That's what everyone think. You can just attack with Agent, you don't have to animate your Nexus, and you can just go for it. This is not true when you're playing against 4-color control, because their main removal is Abrupt Decays. They play the most of these. Abrupt Decay does not target a land, so it's better to attack with Inkmoth Nexus. And this is just one small situation where it's even the creature with which you attack is important. So this is why I said I could write a book about this. Every situation is different and every deck is different. So it's just hard. Knowing when to go for it is what makes a good Infect player.
I think it also really rewards like studying every single deck.
Exactly.
Like you say, the knowledge of knowing that 4-color control plays Abrupt Decay as a main removal spell, that's invaluable because then you get in this attack with the Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah.
But there are versions that play Source of Plowshares,
Exactly.
so you need to know each different version of decks.
Exactly.
If you come up against Storm, you need to know, are they currently playing like 2 Fluster Storms and 2 Fatal Pushes sideboard, or are they playing Massacre over Fatal Push because of Esper Vial? Like, you really need to know every single thing about every other deck, I feel like. Like, you should be doing that for most decks in Legacy anyway, but Infect feels like you need to know it even more than most.
Yeah, I think Infect is one of the decks that if you're very knowledgeable about every deck in the format, I think it's one of the decks that can give you the highest edge that I'm not sure, of course, because I usually always play Infect, but I think it's one of the decks that gives you the biggest boost in win rates, because if you know exactly what your opponent can have, that's how Infect will reward you, at least in my experience. And what I usually do is whenever a new set comes out, I wait for a week or two on MTG Top 8, and then what I always do is I just click on every deck I can find and see, okay, so what's changed? How is the meta developing? Is 4-color control going back to more Fatal Pushes? Are they playing more Abrupt Decays? How is the meta evolving? And if you want to have a good win rate with Infect, this is something that you just have to do. You just have to know the format, in all the in and outs. What is happening? What are people doing? Because otherwise, if I go for it thinking that 4-color control is still always playing or mostly playing Abrupt Decays, and they Fatal Push me, game over, right? So, yeah.
I guess you do have to, like, this feeds into your finding the spot, which it is just super hard. Like, I know from experience playing against Infect, when I've been playing Control, they don't go for a kill that I'm aware of, but I have to represent stuff. And based on information you're feeding or getting fed, it's right not to go for it. So you're playing both things, but sometimes you're thinking, in this, if you're aware of a deck like, for example, Grixis Control, a while ago that you mentioned, you know that deck is just chock full of removal and Hymn to Turak, so you're in this bind where you probably want to push against them earlier and take higher risks. But if you're against something like Abrupt Decay where the removal is 2 mana, you really can afford to play it slow, and they don't really play discard currently, the snow decks generally.
Exactly.
So
I think for me one of the most fun things about the deck too is just use everything to your advantage. So use the fear of your opponents to your advantage, because people are afraid of playing against Infect. It is true, and they have to be, because it can win out of nowhere.
It is terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
You can just die.
It's hard to play, but it's also hard to play against. And you use to your advantage. And as I said, even the skill of your opponent is important when you're playing Infect, because like, imagine this, right? When I start playing against opponent, I try to evaluate, okay, is this a newer player or is he skilled? And I usually find this out pretty quickly, because good opponents or who have played against Infect a lot, they know not to pick a fight with Infect in combat, because you will lose. This is what I want. So if I start attacking with an elf and my opponent just immediately uses the Fatal Push on it, then I know, okay, he's clearly not experienced against playing against Infect, and I will abuse this. I know he will go for he will pick a fight in combat, and then just, okay, sure, in response, Invigorate and Berserk with Vine's backup, and he's dead. But if I know I'm playing against good opponents, I can abuse this as well, because I know that good opponents, they wait until my end step to kill my creature, as they should. But if you know this, I can steal a couple of Infect points very easily, because sometimes I have an Infect threat in my hand, and I know if I play this, he will just remove my threat and respond. So I just attack. He does not use removal on my elf, as he shouldn't. Okay, great. So I've just done one Infect, or maybe two, who knows. And then afterwards, I just play another threat, and then you can build one of my threats. It's fine. So even this is important, knowing how skilled your opponent is to abuse this as well. With Infect, you can literally abuse everything that your opponent does, or even how skilled they are at the game. And this is what I love. Just abusing the mind games and abusing the fear and the skill level of your opponent. You can use everything to your advantage with the deck, which is what I love. And if
you're really hyping me up to play it again now.
It's so fun. I can't explain this. Every game is fun with Infect, and I really do. I feel as though it's one of the decks that I feel very rewarding if you win a tight game, because you have to accept you're not going to win all the matches with Infect. Sometimes you will have an opening hand, and if your opponent just have so much removal, you're going to lose. That's just it. But if you navigate things correctly and you squeeze out a win, it feels so rewarding, because you really feel like, as you said before, you have won the chess game. And I've tried other decks, and like I remember that once I played Grixis Delver in a tournament, and I went 5-2, just missing top 8, which is a good result, and I felt horrible. I didn't have any fun at all. So I was like, yeah, sure, fine result. I'm never going to play the deck again. Because it was so straightforward. I felt as though, yeah, I won because I played the best cards in Legacy. I didn't feel like I had made some crazy decisions, or wow, that was so cool. No, I felt like, okay, I played the best cards and I win. Great. But I just didn't feel like I was playing the chess game, where in fact, sometimes if I think I'm going to do this and then he does that, and then I can do this, and if he does that, then I do like this and I win. And once you're experienced, when you are experienced with the deck, sometimes it will happen exactly as you thought it was going to happen. I'll tell you one thing, that's pretty much the best feeling you can have with a deck, where if you can predict everything and it happens exactly in the correct order, then yeah, that's why I play the deck. Winning the chess game, it's so amazing. It's lovely.
Well, I appreciate winning, especially like when it's a big important event for its own as well. Didn't you actually like do really well or even win earlier this year, before like the whole COVID situation, at some card market tournament? I think I remember.
Yeah, exactly. I played my last big tournament was in February in Paris, the Magic Card Market Series, probably the biggest tournaments in Europe, I think. Yeah. Where I think it was over 100 people. Don't know the exact amount, maybe 110, something like this. I think my biggest win so far, and I took the win in Paris. Funny thing, I actually won against a friend of mine who is a Belgian, and we drove in the same car to Paris.
Those are the best stories.
Yeah, really was. I think the win rate of our car was pretty high, so that was pretty funny. But I took it home with Infect, and I think it was because I made a good meta call. Because in Europe, I don't know if it's the same for in the United States, but in Europe it seems to me like everyone likes to play control, or maybe just in paper in general. Everyone likes to play control, and this is so different from the online meta, which you probably know. In online meta, you see a lot more combo, and in real life, everyone plays control. And yeah, I think I made a good estimate of this, where I even went down to 18 lands, but I went in a deck where I had Sylvan Library main, which was usually not something that people did. I cut Wasteland because it's not good against control and then the basics and Astrolabe, etc., etc. And I still had a lot of tight games, but this is one of the things that it was most rewarding, where if you don't make any mistakes, you will perform well. Because I think it was in the was it the semi-finals or the quarter? I think semi-finals I played against Grixis Delver, where actually there were so many decisions to be made. I ended up winning because my opponent had made 3 errors in a row. I think I would have won the game anyway, but because he had made so many errors, he ended up being disqualified, which was a bit of a bummer to me, really, because I really just, I wanted to play it out because I felt like I'm doing everything the correct way, and I didn't enjoy that win, despite the fact that, okay, you win, sure, but that's not that's not why I play the game. I want to play that chess game and put all my pieces together. But I was very happy with the win because I played against so many different decks. I think I played in the Swiss. I think I played every round against a different deck.
A different kind of control deck?
If only that were true. No.
So generally, what would you say? What are your best matchups? Like, what are you looking to face with the deck right now?
The best matchups, well, it has changed a bit now since I swapped to the White Splash, because my win rates have gone up against a lot of them. But there are a couple of decks that are always bad. And it may be some decks that you wouldn't expect. For example, one of my most difficult matchups is actually Eldrazi, which is something that I wouldn't have expected. But for a year now, I've been keeping statistics of all my wins and losses. And I found that Eldrazi is one of my highest loss percentage. And once I started thinking about this, because this is why I started keeping track of all of this, if I have a win rate which is lower than 50%, I start thinking about, okay, how can I improve this matchup? And Eldrazi, what they usually do is they have a fast clock, and they have Chalice, and they have Thought-Knot Seer to pitch away our pump spells. And this is why losing against Eldrazi is usually because they lock me out of the game either with Chalice or taking one essential part with Thought-Knot Seer. Well, they can of course just run you over with turn 3, what's the name of the huge swinger?
Smasher.
Smasher, exactly,
Smasher.
Where it just destroy you. And I think that's true for all Infect decks. Decks that have Disruption and the fast clock is something that we struggle with. So, which is...
That sounds like something that's good against combo decks. Disruption and a fast clock.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think against Eldrazi, we have to play as a combo deck. So that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's Eldrazi, and Delver can be... It is also a difficult matchup. But I have to note that although I think that Delver is a difficult matchup, it's not among the worst. I think Delver is a matchup that I love playing because it's so skill intensive. So I wouldn't put it alongside the worst matchups. I think if I had to make like a top 5, I'd say definitely Eldrazi. Then Moonstompy, that's a horror. I think that's probably the worst matchup.
I hear that a lot from Infect, actually.
Yeah, it's horrible because every single card they play, it makes us lose the game. It really is that easy. We have to deal with everything.
It's a really, really rude deck.
Yeah, it is. So I'm very happy that now it's going away with the Astrolabe, etc. So that's a good thing. Astrolabe is not something that Infect. Well, I don't really care about this all that much. It can stay if you ask me, but I guess that's an unpopular opinion. So let's go.
Okay, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight, everybody. If you want to find... No, go ahead.
Should have said that. What else? Well, of course, control decks. Grixis control, 4-color control. These are very difficult to deal with. And then I guess Burn and Death Shadow. I think this is my top 5. Eldrazi, Moonstompy, Grixis or 4-color control, Death Shadow, and Burn. I think those are the worst ones.
So which ones do you actually want to face?
Well, these are much easier if every deck that tries to race us, but does not have that much interaction, which is Death and Taxes, Elves, Goblins. So these are all very good matchups. I think in the past, let me just quickly check my statistics. Let's see, after swapping to white, I have a 93% win rate against Elves. So they just try... Yeah, 93%.
How many matches?
22. So
okay, that's pretty good.
Lost one or maybe 2 of them. But this is changing now that they have Allosaurus Shepherd, I think, because, well, we can't counter anymore if they have the Shepherd. So that does change a lot, which I guess is true for Elves with a lot of matchups. But you can see a pattern. Death and Taxes, they usually, the only way they can interact with us is Source of Plowshares, and we can deal with that. Elves as well, in the past, before Shepherd, they did not have any real way to interact with us, and we could counter. Goblins, they just try to run you over, and maybe they have like some form of removal, but it's not what the game plan is. And these three are all trying to race us, but you will never win a race against Infect. That's not going to happen. We are just so fast, we will beat you. I think the best matchup that you can have is Cloud Post. Let me think. Have I ever lost a match against?
So slow and sluggy.
Yeah, they take time to set up, and they don't have all that much ballista. That's dangerous. If they have ballista, they can win.
I guess their interaction is like Maze of Ith and Glacial Chasm.
Yeah, that's true. So we have a lot of stuff to interact with them. It's not like it's 100% win rate, but I think it's about 85% or something like this. I think I can count on one hand the amount of games I've lost against Cloud Post, because it's almost a buy really. Something like that, 85%, maybe. Maybe more.
We take those 85%.
And then actually, Old School Miracles. That was a good matchup. But that has changed. Miracles now is not the Miracles of the past anymore.
Yeah, they've got flying snakes and stuff.
Yeah, flying snakes, that's not something that Infects like to see, because we rely on Inkmoth Nexus in the matchup. And now that they have Quattles, Inkmoth isn't that good anymore as it was in the past. But I think this is the top 5 of good matchups. Death and Taxes, Elves, Goblins, Cloud Post. And I guess Miracles in the past, but that's not an option anymore. So then probably Sneaky Show, really. That's a pretty easy matchup.
I'd love to play a deck that beats Sneak and Show. I never do.
That sounds pretty confident. That actually brings me to a more recent addition to the deck that, well, I guess hadn't been printed before, and that's Oko. You got one in the main deck and the second copy in the sideboard. Yep. And I think some of our questions that we received were on that card specifically. Like, what exactly is Oko doing for the deck, and why do you like it?
So once Oko was printed, I immediately saw the potential in the card, and I'm in a lot of Infect Facebook groups and Discords, etc., and I said immediately, we have to play this card because it's amazing. And people said, yeah, but it doesn't do anything for game plan, so no card's bad. And while that's true, in fact, Oko is just so broken that it can win the game on its own, right? And that's why probably every single deck that plays blue-green can just play Oko, because it's so busted. But for us specifically, what Oko can do is it can get rid of artifacts. So I'm playing one in the main, because if they resolve a Chalice, that actually gives you an out. Oko, and if you're playing against Death and Taxes and they resolve Cheetah, that gives you an out, where usually game 1, if Death and Taxes has the Cheetah, game over. We have 0 outs. And if there is an artifact that makes you unable to play the game, Oko gives you an out. And now, with the power creep, as I said before, creatures get the best abilities now. And Oko can get rid of the abilities. I don't care if you have a 3/3, and I don't care if you destroy Oko, like you have a Plague Engineer, I make your Plague Engineer into a 3/3, and you destroy Oko the turn after. I don't care. That's not why this is here. Oko, for Infect, usually is get rid of one thing that I care about, and then I can win the game after. So this is why Oko is there. It makes it so we can get rid of the stuff we don't care about, and who knows, sometimes it's just a win condition, because if we play Oko at the right time, we can just go for the control game plan and then just start slamming in with a 3/3. And if I invigorate Berserk a 3/3, I'm going to slam in with a 14 damage, so that's fine. I don't have to win with Infect. Regular damage is perfectly fine too.
Speaking of regular damages, that brings back the... whenever I think of Infect dealing regular damage, it reminds me of the GP Vegas, was it? Or I can't remember where Tom Ross beat like blue-red standstill with sudden shocks, with just attacking with a Noble Hierarch. It's absolutely beautiful.
Exactly.
Oh, that was GP New Jersey 2014, where he played against Lam Pham, one of the co-creators of Canadian Threshold.
Exactly.
And I saw the list and I saw the 3 sudden shocks, and I was like, how will Infect ever beat the 3 sudden shock deck? But he managed to do it. That's amazing.
Just what a god.
Yeah, exactly. People don't expect regular damage from Infect, and I can understand why, but it happens. One of the most cool things that I've done in recent timings is I'm now playing Allosaurus Shepherd in a sideboard too, and I have been able to actually use the second ability
Really?
of the
Wow.
yeah, which and I'll be honest, I could have won with Infect, but I just if I can, I want to tick off some things of my list, and being able to win with the second ability from Allosaurus Shepherd was pretty high on that list, so that was pretty funny.
Nice.
Yeah, it was. So
That's awesome.
sometimes we can just do we can do weird things with our deck that people don't expect.
In speaking of weird things, bring it on. We actually had several you guys. I guess Caleb has an idea how many questions we received for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's like two entire pages of Google Doc show notes with just questions for you. I'm gonna pick one, and that's from Daos in our Discord, and he is asking about pet cards that you love in Infect. Like which kind of cute cards could you run in Infect, or am I going to expand that to which kind of like cute tricks can you pull in Infect with the cards that people might not be immediately aware of that will blow your mind?
I love this question so much because I'm very big fan of pet cards. I think you have 15 cards in the sideboard, so you have room for one janky card in there, right? So just try it. Just play.
This
Usually
is
if
how
I
you
go to
build legacy
tournaments,
decks, everyone.
yeah, just play 14 good cards and one card that you play to have fun with. And of course, I do still try to find a card that's actually good or I see potential in there, but it can be something sweet. And maybe I should just let's have something funny here. I'm just going to name a card that I played and has gotten into a top 8 finish on MTG top 8, and let's see if any one of you legacy veterans actually know what the card does. So I'm pretty curious.
Go on, hit me.
Want to play the game? Okay, let's see. Animation module. What does this do?
Oh yeah, that's an artifact for 1 mana. Whenever a
Right.
player, you can pay 3 mana to give a counter to a permanent or a player, and whenever a counter is put on something, you can pay 1 to make a 1/1 servo.
Awesome. I thought I had you there. Yeah, exactly. I actually played that card when Miracles was the top deck,
Nice.
and I found that I was actually able to get in for 9 Infect, because that's when Miracles started. They don't care about the Infect damage at all, so you can deal 9 Infect damage. I don't care about this at all. And I had so many fun games where I just go 9 Infect, and I have 0 protection in my hand, literally 0, and I'm going to walk straight into a Source of Plowshares. But again, I know I'm playing against a good opponent. So if I deal 9, he doesn't care. So I just double Invigorate. He says, yeah, sure. 9 Infect, okay. End of turn. Source of Plowshares is my threat. And he's like, okay, I win. Next turn, I just play Animation module, and it's an artifact. So
I gotta
just
say,
win the game.
I slightly cheated here because this was played in like modern scales. It's quite famous. But
Okay.
the OG
So you
card
knew.
like this, which my friend played for 2 years for Miracles, Contagion Clasp.
That's
You know
what
that?
I was
Yeah,
wondering
great.
about, because that's what Tom Ross actually played at times, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
So this is the card that does a similar thing, but it costs 4 mana to activate. So it's similar style.
Yeah, this is cheaper.
Do you have any more
so-
that might?
Yeah, I'll keep them coming.
Go on.
I wouldn't say this is a pet card, but I think it's just I'm just going to name a couple of cards that I thought were janky but still good in the correct situation. Another one. I think you maybe know this one. It's Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. It's a Planeswalker.
Oh yeah. This is 1 green, comes in with like 3 loyalty. You can -2 to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and like +1 to make a 0/1 plant, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. And I played this also in the Miracle Age, where usually Miracles, they bordered out Council's judgments against Infect, which is correct. And back in that day, Planeswalkers weren't that powerful, so Infect did not have any way to actually play Planeswalkers. And I started playing this specifically for that matchup because nobody expects Planeswalkers from the Infect side. Now they do with Oko, etc., but back then nobody expected this. And I have won so many games off of Nissa, Voice of Zendikar, and just a meta call.
Because I think
right?
they would side
It
out
works
forces
out.
generally as well, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I guess not all of them, but
Yeah.
it makes sense to do
But
this.
you are taking out a majority of answers to this card, which you do need to answer, really. So, yeah.
Exactly. And this is what I mean by knowing the meta. I knew that people were taking out these cards against Infect. So I'm like, well, then I'm just going to punish this.
Yeah, it's smart.
There was a time in 2018 when there was a Belgian player who top-8'd a GP, Legacy GP, playing Steel Stompy. Do you remember that deck?
Was that
Steel
Johan de
Stompy?
Gruyter?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a friend of mine. I know him very well.
Nice.
And after he top-8'd, everyone in Belgium started playing Steel Stompy, which is horrible because it's a very bad matchup.
Yeah,
for us. It really is.
I guess it's like
And I
Chalice,
started-
Thorn, Blister.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a pile of bullshit which we lose
That's
against.
the perfect definition. It's a pile of bullshit. I completely agree.
But it's very good against Infect, yeah. And I started playing the card Seeds of Innocence. Do you know what this one does?
Yeah,
you
of
do?
course. It's It's like colorless and 2 green, and it destroys all artifacts.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't going to get this one. Nice.
Every artifact's controller does gain life equal to that artifact's casting cost. So I don't really care about that life gain. And that was such a blowout. Like, Steel Stompy was everywhere. And I was like, yeah, sure, do your thing. Play Seeds of Innocence. Okay, game over. And that was just a meta call specifically for Belgium. But it works out.
Plus,
at that
plus
time.
there's something that's so like fulfilling when you beat people with some silly card that no one knows about.
Exactly. It's so one of the best feelings in the world.
When I was playing when I was playing Xerdus,
Yeah.
I had a Reanimator opponent, like Entomb and then Reanimate, not Grizzlebrand, but a Bane of Progress.
Oh yeah.
Do you know that one?
Yeah. That kills all artifacts at the beginning of some step.
No, it's just like ETB destroy
when it
all
comes into
artifacts
play,
and enchantments,
right?
and then it gets like loads of +1/+1 counters for each thing it killed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
If I had to name one pet card, however, this is the card that I love the most. And even now, I've had so many top 8 finishes where the card's in my sideboard, and still people tell me this card is shit. Why do you play this? And I genuinely love this card. But maybe you know this. It's called Great Sable Stag. You know the card?
Yes.
So on that topic, let's just jump to a question we had Ron K on Twitter. They asked, what's behind the love to Great Sable Stag? So explain Great Sable Stag, Sam. What is going on?
Yeah, so people, this is what I mean. People ask me all the time about this card, and I can't tell you how much I love this card. It's so good, and it seems to be so horrible. For people who don't know this, it costs colorless, double green. It can't be countered. It has protection from blue and black, and it's a 3/3.
And it's an elk.
It.
Everyone loves
and
the
it's
elk.
an elk. Yeah. Without Oko, funny friends. So that card seems bad, right? But in very, very specific matchups, it is awesome. And this is why I get a lot of questions about this. Just because it's in my sideboard doesn't mean you have to bring it in every single matchup. I had this card in, I think it was in 2017 or 18, back when we saw Death Shadow for the first time in Legacy, and Grixis Control was the top deck. I think it was 2018 or 17, I'm not sure what
sounds
the
about
year
right,
was.
17 I think.
Yeah, but it's so silly because Death Shadow was everywhere, and that's a very difficult matchup for Infect. And as soon as I have a very bad matchup, I try to look for things that have answers. And I'm not exaggerating here. If you play Great Sable Stag against Death Shadow, Great Sable Stag against Death Shadow is a 3-mana card that says you win the game. It really is that easy, and it can't be countered too.
Yeah, I can't see them doing anything. It's just
they pay so much life, especially against Infect, because who cares about life against Infect, right? And they have counter magic and black removal, and Great Sable Stag doesn't care about any of this. So I just play it and I win the game. If I have this in my opening hand, literally the game was all about let him do his thing, play Great Sable Stag, and win the next turn. And it works every time. So that's why it was amazing.
Very nice.
And then it was a situation, in that year you had Grixis Control as the best control deck. So after evaluating the deck as well, they played in that era, they played 2 Lightning Bolts.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
All the rest was black removal and counter magic.
It was like Fatal Push, Colligan's Command, Hymn to Torak.
Exactly, Colligan's Command. Yeah, exactly. And again, Great Sable Stag doesn't care about this.
Yeah.
So if I resolved Great Sable Stag, this was all about keeping that Dio alive. And it wasn't actually me who found this card. At this time, I was just looking, okay, how can I win? And I tried some other cards, but they weren't good enough. I actually started playing... what's the name of the... It's a colorless 1 blue. It has hexproof. It's a 1/1.
Invisible Stalker.
Yeah, exactly, that one. I tried it. It wasn't good enough. And then one of my Infect buddies said, have you considered the card Great Sable Stag? And I said, I don't know this. What is that? I looked it up. I saw it. And it was just love on first sight.
Just love
it really was. And I can't tell you how many games I win with Great Sable Stag. Because I play it, and even my opponents are like, what is this? Or they're saying, this is bad. Why do you play this? And then I crush them with it.
Nice.
That's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, when they say it's bad, and you're just like, well, I mean, you just lost a really bad
we'll see
card
about that. We'll see about that, shall we? And but again, it's for very specific matchups and only in very specific metas. I don't think it's good in the meta right now, and in my recent lists you can see I'm no longer playing it. I've played it for a while, but that was when 4-color control had not yet adapted Oko, and the main removal again was abrupt decays, etc. Then it was good for a while because they only had 3 Swords of Plowshares. But now with Euro, winning with regular damage is no longer an option.
Makes sense.
So yeah, you have to think about this card. When is it good? But if I had to name one pet card, it's definitely Great Sable Stag.
Nice.
Definitely.
It does stand out because we had that specific question about like, why do you love this card? So that's pretty cool.
People still think it's horrible, and they are wrong.
That's a great thing though, when people keep telling you, why are you playing this card, whatever, and then you're like, well, my results speak for myself. For itself, right? You're just like,
yeah,
well,
exactly.
I'm going to carry on winning with it. You can all not think it's good, and you can all carry on losing to it.
Yeah, exactly. Card's good. Card's amazing, but not right now.
Yeah, time and place. So moving on, as we mentioned, we do have quite a lot of questions, so we'll try and get the bulk of them in. So another one, which is a general one, which I think we've started to cover, but I think you could speak a bit more about Snow, is so Dow's from the Discord as well. I said, how do you think Infect is positioned in this meta where everyone talks about Uro, Oko, Astrolabe, Arcanist? It's kind of broad, but do you think it's like a tier 2 higher kind of deck? Where do you think of it?
Find that to be a difficult question as well, because I'm not actually sure, because, well, in all honesty, Infect has never been good in the meta, right? Is there? That's just true.
Well, during Top Miracles, at least, it was very good, I think.
Yeah, I think it was
specifically against Miracles.
Top Miracles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good specifically against Miracles, but not against the other day. Delver has always been a bad matchup.
Okay.
And Delver has always been the best aggro deck alongside Miracles. So I don't think there has ever been a situation where Infect has been good in the meta. If you play Infect, you play the deck because you love it, and you like to play the chess game, and you are very good in the deck, and you feel confident that you will be able to win those bad matchups as well. So how do I feel about the meta right now with all of the new cards? Well, I think Oko, of course, is difficult for us, but we can play it ourselves. So Oko is just so broken. Yeah, exactly. Fight fire with fire. That's a good way to look at it. And the funny thing is now, since I have adopted the white splash, I said that 4-color control is one of the worst matchups, right? But after adopting white, my win rate against 4-color control is right now 79%, which is, for me, yeah, it's amazing. Because what I do is, if I'm playing against 4-color control, I'm no longer playing a combo deck. I'm not even relying on Infect anymore. I just play 2 Okos myself. I play double Sylvan Library. I play Teferi. Yeah, this is what I love about Infect. Name me one other combo deck, which it is not, that plays 3 Planeswalkers, double Sylvan Libraries, and it's so funny because we can play as what we want. So yeah, it's not good positioned in the meta, but if Infect is a deck where if you know how to handle the meta, it will always be good.
Yeah.
That's what I think. But you have to invest time in really identifying the meta, looking for details. And I spend a lot of time just, a lot of people think this is boring probably, but there are a lot of times when I just click on MG Top 8 and I just look through the decks and I think, okay, this is bad for us. Okay, what can I do? How can I improve, etc., etc. Like Arcanist, horrible card for us. I started losing so many games against Delver because when Arcanist was printed, I was still on Simic Infect, and it was so bad. I started playing like even double Hydroblast against it, but it just wasn't good enough. It was such a difficult card, and I found that it was at the same time when everyone was playing creatures and it was so overpowered, and I swapped to white specifically for Swords to Plowshares, and my win rate was increasing again. But you just have to keep Arcanist off the board. So this was a real change for me, because in the past, before Arcanist, the game plan against Delver was try to keep their first threats, or maybe their first 2 threats, off the board, and you win. If it goes to a race, you win. That was how you approached Delver. Not anymore. How you approach Delver right now is keep Arcanist off the board, or you will lose. Mm-hmm. It's that easy.
It feels the same for
if
a lot
he
of
has a
decks,
turn
though.
1. Yeah, if he has turn 1 Delver, I don't even use a Force of Will if I have it. No, but imagine he has an Arcanist. That's really scary. Turn 1 Delver, yeah.
This is
sure.
so similar. Like, I always talk about how I always felt like Infect is like the sister deck of Fs. This is just speaking like straight from my heart. like when I play elves, you also bring in removal against their threats, because then you can also just like win on the ground. And I also often do it. Like before we got Elsaur Shepherd, I usually sided out huge parts of the combo, including Natural Order, and would often just grind them out with regular damage. And part of that was, when you see Delver, you just Abrupticate. It's gonna be fine. Like, you don't even care about the rest that's on the ground. On the ground, you can just like Wild Symbiote, block, bounce, whatever. But now that Arcanist is there, I will very often forego killing a Delver, even if I could. Like, if I'm on the play, I can technically turn to Abrupticate a Delver. I often won't, because I first want to see whether they are gonna get their turn to Arcanist, because that's the much, much higher priority target. I can take the damage of the Delver, but I cannot let an Arcanist attack, and that's the one guiding thing for me right now in the format.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think with Infect, if you want Infect to be good in the meta, forget about it. It's never good in the meta. Infect is only good in the right players' hands. And you have to be willing to adapt. Every new printing or every new set, especially in the recent times, you will have to adapt. And sometimes for the better, you know, Astrolabe being printed, in the beginning I was thinking this is going to be horrible. But it turns out I don't really care about Astrolabe all that much. And it even has made Moonstompy go away. So that has actually been good for Infect. And now, with control decks going to Euro, that's amazing for Infect. They rely on their life total. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I couldn't care less.
You're fine with them gaining 50 whatever life.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's why my win rate against 4-color control has been increasing, because their main deck relies more on Astrolabe, Euro, which I don't really care about. But this makes it so that I have cut another Sylvan library, because I feel like one has been enough. So this you can see a pattern, right? Mm-hmm. Analyze everything, analyze the meta very well, and you can find the correct 75 cards to make Infect good in every meta. But it's never going to be a tier 1 deck, probably not even going to be a tier 2 deck, which is fine, because if Infect ever were to become a tier 1 deck, it's going to die, because it's so easy to hate against that it would just immediately drop. That's just how it is. It's so easy to hate against.
I think I hold the deck in slightly higher esteem than what you're making out. I think it's one of these decks. Yeah, I agree with the rough thing you're saying. Like it's very easy to hate out with just like loads of removal spells, I guess. And Plague Engineer does a number, as you said a few times, but it has this potential. Like, it's a grindy deck that can beat the Premier Control deck. It does have some game against Delver. You can raise combo decks, and you have this like ceiling potential of turn 2 kills. So I don't know if like we weren't having this podcast here and someone said, "Hey, what do you think of Infect?" and I would say, "Oh, it's very solid tier 2, I think." About them.
If that's how you would assume it, I agree, because well, if you ask me, Infect is the best deck, really. It really is, and I'm not trying to be silly about this, but I genuinely think I've tried a lot of decks. And I always felt, even when I was playing, like I've played other decks as well, like Miracles, etc., for shits and giggles, I guess. But I've always felt like this is just not as good as Infect. I genuinely feel this way. But if
I get what you're saying,
I think maybe saying that it's never going to be tier 1 or tier 2 is because I don't think it will ever be played that much in the meta. Maybe that's how I approached the idea of what do you mean with a tier 2 or tier 1 deck.
Yeah,
but I really think it's very strong. I really do think it is.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because you have to invest so much time in making it into your own tier 1 deck that people kind of want to say, nah, I don't want to invest that much time in a deck. I'll just play it safe with a more straightforward game plan. Maybe that's better.
Okay, no, I understand you now. Yeah, I understand you better. Like, the deck's potential is through the roof. I got it. It makes sense to me.
Exactly.
So moving on, we have further questions from the Discord. We have ASO or ASO, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. So he said, I'd be interested to hear his opinions on the following cards in Infect. So we've got a few cards which we haven't really touched on. So Preordain, Crop Rotation, and then Teferi, Time Raveler.
Mm-hmm. So my thoughts about these cards specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Preordain, no. That's short answer. I usually answer very very long, but no. Ponder is just better.
Yeah.
Why? Because Infect wants to see as much cards as possible. It really is that easy. If I'm looking for a pump spell to win the game, or Preordain, I will see 2 cards. Not good enough.
Makes sense.
I want, if there was a worse Ponder, but it shows me 4 cards, I'd probably play that. Infect relies on a certain set of cards which you want to find, and I want to find them as efficiently as I can. So no, I don't play Preordain. I enjoy Ponder more.
I think that's a good point about Preordain. There was a time when in the old Checkpile decks, the Danes actually used to run Preordain over Ponder. And I think it makes sense in a deck where you're really just playing a bunch of good stuff. So you're really just trying to filter out, like, I don't know, blanks, like lands or sometimes forces that you don't need. So you just want more if you can't advantage random good stuff. But like you mentioned, in Infect, you want very specific cards. Either you want like a threat, a creature, or a pump spell, or a protection spell. And having more of the same doesn't accomplish anything if you don't have like a creature, for example. So I can see why Ponder would be like the much more preferred card there.
Exactly. And then crop rotation, another card I can write an entire book about. I'm in love with crop rotation. It's so good. And this is one of the things that we haven't covered yet, but Infect plays a lot of one-ofs. And the one-ofs are so amazing because people can't actually play around one-offs, it's a one-off. So if they have it, they have it. But the thing is, we have a lot of one-offs. I play one Oko, one Library, one Crop Rotation, one Scale Up, one Become Immense, and one Wasteland too. So
I'm going to tell you, the amount of times I fetched a duel against Infect thinking, oh, they're not going to have the one of Wasteland.
Yeah, sure.
They have it 110% of the time. It's just
It's a one-off. I'm not going to play around a one-off, and this is what I want. Because it makes it so strong. And Crop Rotation is probably the best one-off in the deck. Because at the end of your turn, crop rotate into Nexus because you've tapped out. I destroy you. It works every time. Often I have crop rotation in my opening hand, and I only use it after turn 5 when my opponent has tapped out, and I destroy him the turn after because it's just crop rotation does it all. Even now in the past, when I was playing Simic, you had Karakas and Bajukabog in the sideboard to deal with graveyard or legendary creatures. I have removed them from the sideboard because I no longer need them, but I still play crop rotation because the potential is just so high. And we don't even always use it for Inkmoth. Sometimes if I'm playing against goblins and I have an elf in play, he attacks, I block with elf, I crop rotate, get Pendelhaven, I save my creature, the goblin dies, and I start slamming in.
That's nasty.
Against lands, I crop rotate for a wasteland. Against dark depths, get a wasteland. It does so much. The singleton crop rotation. It's never bad. It really is never bad.
What if you have no lands in play?
Then it is horrible, but I guess if you have no lands in play, I don't know what card is good.
Yeah, true. Okay.
So crop rotation just amazing. It's like a trump card that's always good, and you can always use it. Oko, I think we already covered this. Card's broken, so it's an extra win condition, and it makes it so you can. It's a win condition, and you can get rid of artifacts or creatures that are horrible. And then we have Teferi. Very good.
I was going to add to this question actually. So is Teferi a card that's like it's just a kind of meta card against control, or is it a card that you would think about splashing for just for that, or is like the white splash just for source splashes really, and then
Teferi is of course the best card against control, definitely. That's why it's there. But it has a lot of other very good situations where it's also excellent. Like I also bring it in against in the mirror against other Infect decks. It's great because they can't do their stuff anymore. They just can't win unless they go for it in the main phase. I find this to be true against a lot of other creature-based decks as well. For example, against Maverick, it's actually good. It's even good against Death and Taxes because they no longer can use their removal. So and against some certain combo decks as well, because if you have like Force of Will and you have Teferi in play, their combo isn't going to work. So Teferi is a card that is like weirdly good, but it is a card that I always, against control decks, it's the first card to come in, but against other decks, it's the last card to come in because it's never bad, but it does cost 3 mana, so it's a double-edged sword sometimes. So it's definitely there for the control matchups, and it has use outside of this as well from time to time.
You don't want to clunk up on like the 3 mana spells as well in this deck.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Cool. So next one we have Tom de Decker, which I think you might have heard of him from your Belgian scene.
He's of course I've heard of him.
So
good friend from Belgium.
He asks, when are the Infect community going to apologize for starting and spreading COVID? And then on a scale of 0 to 10, how bored are they of getting that joke by now?
Yeah, it's definitely the first time I've heard that one. But no pun intended, on a scale of 0 to 10. I love that one, although I guess he doesn't realize. But
on a scale up of 6 to 4?
Yeah, exactly. I guess, as I say, a 6. Get it?
Isn't it? Nice.
Get it?
I got it. Sweet.
Nice.
We have Neville Shoot asking a question. He says, which berserk is the right berserk?
It depends how much of a dick you are, really.
Let's go maximum, because I think there's only one right answer.
Maximum dick.
Yeah.
Truth is, it really depends on, and I'm not joking here, how much of a gentleman, let me put it like this, how you are. Because berserk it's such an old card. Have you ever read the initial wording on berserk? Because it's so funny. Long. It's horrible. Maybe let me check. Let me read it to you guys.
Oh yeah, go ahead,
guys. Okay, so the old wording of berserk is as following: until end of turn, target creature's current power doubles and it gains trample ability. If it attacks, target creature is destroyed at end of turn. This spell cannot be cast after current turn's attack is completed.
I read that with a Russian dialect.
Yeah, exactly. This is so weird to read, and there's so much text that it doesn't make any sense. And so which berserk is the right berserk? If you are a dick and you play the old berserk and you just play berserk on your creature, and your creature your opponent may not know what it does, and you just let him read the card. And I've had this happen where I want to explain my opponent what he does, but he just takes the card because he doesn't trust me, which is fine. You should always check that everything is in order, because that's how you play tournaments. But I'm like, okay, sure, read the card. I'm not sure if it works for you. So he blocks. I attacked with an elf. He blocks with a coatl, and I'm like, okay, sure. Invigorate berserk. I had used Pendelhaven, and he's like, damage, and I'm like, yes. And he's like, okay, and I'm okay, you're dead. And he takes the card again, and he's like, why? It's because it says because it gains the trample ability. It says on the card, and this is what I mean.
It depends on which one.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I mean with it depends how much of a dick you are.
Okay.
Because if you're a gentleman, you play the new artwork because there it is worded nicely. If you're not, then you play the old version. But I have to note that I do play the old card myself.
So you're a dick, you're maximum dick.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's just because I have the deck.
Yeah.
I bought it in 2015, and I don't really care about art all that much. So I just haven't bought the new ones. The only thing I love is altars. Don't care about foils or anything else really all that much.
Well, I have some bad news for you, Sam. We have to revoke your Infect license because Martin said this was a trick question, and the real answer is Alpha Berserk.
Oh, okay. But I guess that's fine because that's an old Berserk, right? So that's fine.
We'll let him decide. We'll ask him which one's the right
sure.
How did you actually get your Infect license in the first place?
Yeah. Well, he was a biologist. That's where he got it.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you study biology.
Yeah, at university, and then.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on, we have Ethan Ham from Twitter. So, what is the gain lost for being banned over blue-green? So, I think we've covered this for the most part. So, Source of Plowshares improves your Delver matchup and snow and stuff. Do you think? Is that correct?
Yeah, so definitely Source of Plowshares is the biggest gain. That's definitely one hell of a card. It really improves everything. But what I didn't discuss yet is I also played 2 Rest in Peace.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which is... I actually started playing 1 Rest in Peace because, of course, you want to deal with graveyard decks. But I found Rest in Peace to be secretly amazingly good against Rug Delver. So I now bring them both in against Rug Delver.
Right, because their threats are like Dreadful Darkness, Tarmogoyf, Fleeting Mandrills.
Exactly. If you resolve Rest in Peace, they have nothing. They have Delvers and they have their Okos. Everything else is just useless.
So do you think you'd play Rest in Peace if Rug Delver didn't rely on graveyard as much? If the Delver deck didn't rely on the graveyards, would you still play Rest in Peace as a graveyard hoser, or would you move to Surgical or Graph Digger's Cage or something?
I definitely play one of them because it's the best thing against Dredge and Hogak.
Yeah,
because it does get rid of the graveyard forever, which is in the Simic list. You have Bog and Surgical, but Hogak really doesn't care about those cards all that much. They just refuel the graveyard so quickly that it doesn't matter.
That makes
so
sense.
I do think that Rest in Peace is just a strict upgrade from your usual graveyard hate.
Okay.
And then we have Teferi, which we already covered. So that's the best gain. The big upside from Simic Infect is it's most consistent, of course, because if we have one big downside of Infect is that you trade consistency for power level. So I think Infect has a very high power level, but because you have such a high power level, you have fewer consistency, or it's not as good as, for example, Delver is it's less powerful, I'd say, which means less explosive, but it's definitely consistent.
Absolutely. Does the mana come up much? Like, obviously, going banned to an extra color with Inkmoth Nexus in the deck does hurt. But probably not as bad.
All that much, but it does happen from time to time. But of course, you play 4 Noble Hierarchs as well, which can give you white mana. I don't think I'd ever splash a different color in Infect. Well, I'll be honest, I've tried. Of course, I've tried. But it doesn't work.
Okay.
White is the only one that you can consistently splash. And occasionally you will have trouble with this, but
it's worth it.
It hasn't come up all that much. It's definitely worth it. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Ethan also asked, do you have a deck you sometimes play when you're not playing Infect? Let's say currently, is there any like pet decks especially you're playing?
It depends. On tournaments, I always play Infect, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm playing with friends or online, I do play other stuff from time to time. I actually enjoy playing Miracles from time to time because, it's so different from Infect that it's fun to do. And I also have Zenith Oko. I do enjoy that deck because I've been playing Infect for so long now that I've been searching for decks that I can play that do different things. And Miracles is completely different. And I play Zenith Oko to actually... I had been considering about playing this in a tournament because I want to be able to go Tropical into Noble turn 1.
That's your thing.
And have people thinking I'm playing Infect then just do completely different things.
Save their removal spell, and then you're like, I really needed this Noble to live.
Exactly. Yeah. And I can tell you one thing. Once people start knowing what you're playing and you play a different deck, the look on people's faces is hilarious. I once had a situation where I was playing Miracles. So my opponent's on the play, and he just plays like, I don't know what he played again, but he was on 4 color control, and he just kept the hand full of removal. And I was like, turn 1, Astrolabe.
Nice.
And he just looked at me and he said, what are you doing?
Nice.
And even
You're doing
said,
it wrong.
Looks, yeah, exactly. And he was like, this looks like a spice build. And I'm like, define spice.
I used to play so much Miracles at my local game store, and then developed a love for tin fins. So like took everyone surprised by that. No turn 1 top. It was just turn 1 Grizzlebrand. So
works too.
It. Cool. So we have a question from Marcus, aka I would like to respond, Mr. Blue. He says, how do you approach the slow blue decks? And what do you cut for sideboard games? And he finishes up with, I have tried everything from my perspective and I never win against you. So how does he beat you?
Is that true? I'm sure he has won a couple of games as well. Depends on what he means with the slow blue decks. Is it mono blue or...
Well, he probably means like more pure
the Marcus
Miracles.
kind of deck.
Yeah, he probably doesn't play snow, but like standstill decks now. Blue-white control decks, but like more pure.
Yeah. So as I said before, if you go play against the slower blue decks, you get rid of the straight in combo game plan, and you try to have a more control shell yourself. You bring in Oko, you bring in Teferi, you have a Sylvan Library, you bring in your Veil of Summers, your Flusterstorms. So you just try to grind them out, and what they have to do is, and this is difficult for the control decks, they have to manage your Infect game plan, because it's still a winning condition. If they ignore it, they just die with Infect. But they also have to deal with your Okos. They also have to deal with your Sylvan Library, also with your Teferi. So you split the way you can win. And this is so difficult for these decks because they generally have one way they have to address their opponent. Usually creatures or planeswalkers or something like this. But if we split all of these things, it becomes very difficult for them to actually do this correctly. Where if best thing I can do is just turn 2 Sylvan Library, and sometimes, depending on my hand, I actually want them to counter this, because I might have Elf, Invigorated Berserk in hand, and they fight over this Sylvan Library, and sometimes I even pretend to care, like I daze, they force again, and I'm like, okay, perfect, I don't need this. Next turn he's dead, right? So we can just, depending on your hand, you can just, you try to bait out their relevant stuff, and then win the game
how you want, or how your hand lines up and stuff.
Exactly, and sometimes I have the other way where I just start with a turn 1 elf. He goes for Source of Plowshares, I daze, he forces, and I pretend to care about this, but I don't. Next turn I just resolve an Oko or a Teferi, and then it's another issue. So try to divide the win conditions.
So what do you cut against control generally? I know it'll like change from different control decks, but generally like I would guess some pump spells and dazes and stuff.
Definitely daze, that's bad. Usually all 4 of them, but that depends a bit if I'm on the play or on the draw.
Maybe how they played as well before.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like Berserks either, because that's straight in combo, so I usually cut double Berserk. If they have Quetzals, I leave in 1 usually. But it also depends on how aggressive my opponent is. But in general, so the Daisies and the Berserks are the first cards I look at. And then it depends on how many cards you bring in, of course, but then you have options. I don't like Wasteland against control decks because, well, they have basics, so that's the other card that I'm looking at immediately. And this is what I always do, right? The cards that I first look at are Daze, Wasteland, and Berserks. But it does depend on the list of my opponent, the play style.
But it all makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you bring in your Great Sable Stags, your animation modules and Nissas.
Exactly. All my jank, and I win
Flux
the game
channelers.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. Another question, getting towards the end here. Reeple Cheap from Twitter asks, what are the advantages of combo Delver, so Infect and Ninjas, over Good Stuff Delver, Rug, Blue-Red, and Grixis? So I think we kind of touched on this as well. Like, so you have this combo potential, you're better against other combo decks, I guess, but less consistent. Does that sound right?
Yeah, exactly. I said this before. The Good Stuff Delver, it's good stuff. So what you have is you have a ton of good cards, and you play the best cards, and it's consistent. So you have consistency, where Infect chooses to go for more power level. So Infect has a higher power level, but it has a reduced consistency, because of course your cards depend on each other. Where in Delver, every card is good on its own. Don't know if that's true for Ninjas. Not experienced with that deck, but it's definitely true for Infect.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think they do play fairly similarly.
I don't know. I've never played Ninjas before, so...
Okay. Cool. That is roughly at the end. We some of the listeners, if you didn't hear your specific question being asked, I think we hope it's because we covered it in the previous parts of the podcast. So hopefully it's everything answered. I think we covered most things because in our general thing, we got over it.
I think we got through most of it. So
yeah.
I guess the best way to get more information about the deck is just to like watch you play and get some idea of how you sideboard, because there's probably like no value in going over specific sideboarding right here, right now. But watching your stream is definitely an experience. And by that, like, I mean that in the most positive of ways, because I guess that actually sounded like weird.
Definitely an experience.
I watched Sam stream once and now I'm feeling really ill.
That's fine. Goal accomplished. No. If you want to find out more about sideboarding, definitely in my stream I have more time to, of course, talk about every single detail. So yeah, I will be able to talk more in detail there.
That's amazing. Can you mention your Twitch again?
Of course, it's just twitch.com and then the Fenruscloud.
That's actually a question we received earlier, or rather like through our Discord from our friend Ron K on Twitter, actually, I see.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from? Because to me it sounds like it's some kind of biology concept. There's like the Fenruscloud inside the
Not
plant,
at all.
inside the cell.
You couldn't be further off, really. It's funny because I had this question before. So I'm a huge gamer. I'm a very huge gamer fan, and especially old school RPGs. When I started gaming a lot, it was Final Fantasy. That was my favorite series in the past, and especially Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy IX. For me, probably two of the best games ever. And I was looking at a certain point. I was looking to find a name that I could use in every single video game. So I wanted something that wasn't always picked already, right? Where in the past you usually had to take one
2K.
name. Yeah, something like this. And like what I really love is in Final Fantasy VII, you have the main character, which was called Cloud Strife. And I was such a big fan of that character. I really loved it. And you could also summon like certain gods or something like this. And one of my favorites was Fenrir. It's one of the Norse mythology gods, the wolf. I really do love that character as well. And I decided, what if I just combine these two? So Fenrir and you have Cloud. And that, I didn't want to call it Fenrir Cloud because I don't know why. I just felt it was didn't fit for me. And then I made it into Fenruscloud to make it sound more nicely. And I knew that this was definitely never going to be picked in a video game. And every single video game that I play now, and I have to choose a name, it's always been Fenruscloud. And I just kept it that way.
That's smart.
Okay, that's cool. By the way, I loved Final Fantasy VII as well. That was my first
amazing.
Final Fantasy VII.
Did you play the remake?
Not yet. I got it actually right behind me. I got it from my best friend who just played through it.
Nice.
I've heard and seen stuff about it. Did you play the remake?
I did, of course.
Of course. I guess we can't really spoil anything there, but I was surprised about one major change they made. I guess that's as deep as we can go into it.
Yeah. In general, I really did love the game. I think it's an awesome remake. Some of the choices they made, I don't know if I agree with it, but I did, in general, amazing game, if you ask me.
Oh, definitely. I'm actually much more, not much more, like I'm really happy they made this game, especially in this kind of quality. I'm super intrigued whether, like, it's so weird to talk about this, so maybe I'm just going to cut this short, but there's one major thing that happens in the later part of Final Fantasy VII, which is like a historic moment in video gaming. And now seeing that they made some changes, I wonder if they're going to change that as well. So if you played Final Fantasy VII, you probably know what I'm talking about, like one of the core moments of the deck, I was going to say, of the game. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait a couple of years to see that, but I'm looking forward to that. And yeah,
me too, definitely.
That's it for us today, pretty much today. So if you want to find more about our podcast, you can see it on Twitter at EternalMTG. We can find our friend Fenruscloud on, but I guess your Twitter is also going to be at Fenruscloud.
Yep.
So good at guessing. If you want to find Calum and me, my Twitter is Julian.83, and Calum, is yours White Faces or White Faces MTG?
That is a good question. I should know that, shouldn't I?
How do you not know?
Let me look it up quickly. It's twitch.tv/whitefaces. No MTG. Yeah.
And your Twitter is White Faces MTG.
Yes, that was taken. So very rude person. There we go. This is just professional broadcasting out everything. Yeah. Nice.
Very, very much. I guess you rarely ever tag yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's go with that.
Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Thanks for everyone in the Discord submitting all these amazing questions. Seriously, like, this is the most feedback we've ever gotten on anything. So yeah, definitely feel honored, Sam, that people, I hope we were able to provide what people wanted to see tonight or hear tonight. And if you want to suggest future episodes, this one was a great one. Like, really, really enjoyed this one. If you want to suggest future guests, episode, topics, anything really, positive feedback, negative feedback, anything, as long as it's constructive, I guess, hit us up in our Discord, hit us up on Twitter at EternalMTG. If you want to support us, you can head to patreon.com/everydayeternal to become one of our supporters. And then, depending on the tier, there's different perks. One of our top perks are the Eternal Witness tier or the Griselbrand tier, where we have our supporters Matt Nams, Valerio, James Slack, Victor Van Hans, Trent Browse. Oh, it's an ever-growing family. And on the Griselbrand tier, Vachibat, Scott Monroe, Kulish Alistay, Jeremy Gates, Martin Nielsen, and as of this week, Eugene Freeman. So thank you so much. You're helping out a lot of the production of the show. And with that, I think I'm gonna... Oh, it's midnight already, so... Okay, who am I lying to? I'm not going to go to bed. I'm probably going to play another round of maybe even Infect, or I will need to figure it out.
In any case, thank you so much for having me. I had tons of fun, and I hope that I was able to help you with all of your Infect questions. So thanks for having me, guys.
That's amazing. Why we invited our biologist.
Yeah.
Great.
That's great.
Thanks.
Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
see you guys.